My name is Mark Woods from Statius Management Services. This is ISO 9000 Quality Management Systems in a nutshell. Today's specialist subject is objectives and targets. I think I've said before that ISO generally is interested in things that are wide, or has been said, ISO has been interested in things that are wide, but potentially shallow in its interest. And objectives and targets is one of those things where you can go very narrow and very deep. Clearly, on one hand, you can have a set of objectives and targets that might be written on one page of A4. These are the objectives, these are the targets, this is who's responsible, this is when it needs to get done by. Job done. And that, in a very small company, you could get away with that in terms of objectives and targets for ISO 9000. But in most kind of businesses of any kind of serious size, or somebody that's serious about taking the organisation forward, you probably want something a little bit more detailed. You probably don't want ICI's business plan, 130 pages, 150 pages, or whatever, but you probably may want maybe 5, maybe 10 pages. There's some other bits we're going to cover in other parts of the ISO in a nutshell series, where we look at context and interested parties, and you may include those in the objectives and targets and wrap that up in a kind of company-wide business plan. And that brings me to the point where really we want a business plan for the organisation that contains objectives and targets, because really what we don't want is the ISO tail wagging the business dog. We want to understand where the business is heading and the things that the business needs to get done, and then we want to pull the quality objectives and targets from that rather than the other way round. But more than the business plan, what we probably need, if we're serious about pushing the organisation forward, is a fully fledged action plan. So the business plan would incorporate the thinking about where the organisation needs to go, but quite often when we see business plans, there's no kind of actions that follow on from that. And it's the action plan that I think is the critical part if you want to drive the business forward. So that's really the end of objectives and targets. There'll be a bit more on the next video about context, which is about looking outside the organisation to see how the outside world may affect your objectives and targets. But if you're looking for further information on objectives and targets, there's plenty on the blog site, and if you can't find what you need on the blog site, give us a call.